I had always loved camping, but this time it was different. I had joined a group of strangers online who claimed to be experts in paranormal activities. They invited me to join them on a trip to a forest that was said to be haunted by the spirits of the dead. I was curious and adventurous, so I agreed to go with them. We arrived at the forest around dusk and set up our tents near a clearing. The forest was dense and dark, with twisted trees and strange noises. The group leader, a man named Jake, told us that we would explore the forest at night and try to communicate with the ghosts. He said he had a special device that could detect their presence and record their voices. He also warned us not to wander off alone, or we might get lost or worse. I was a bit nervous, but also excited. I had never seen a ghost before, and I wondered what they would look like and sound like. I followed Jake and the others as we ventured deeper into the forest, holding our flashlights and cameras. Jake turned on his device, which looked like a radio with an antenna. He said it was a spirit box and that it could scan the frequencies and pick up the voices of the dead. He asked some questions such as, "Is anyone here?" and "What is your name?" At first, there was only silence. Then, we heard some faint sounds like static and whispers. Jake said they were the ghosts trying to talk to us. He asked more questions, and the sounds became louder and clearer. We heard words like help, leave, and die. Jake said they were the ghosts warning us or threatening us. He said we should not be afraid, but rather try to understand them and help them. I was not sure what to think. I felt a mix of fear and fascination as I listened to the voices of the dead. I wondered who they were and what had happened to them. I wondered if they were angry or sad, or if they wanted something from us. I wondered if they could see us or touch us or harm us. Suddenly, I heard a scream. It was one of the girls in our group who had wandered off a few feet away from us. She was pointing at something behind a tree, and she looked terrified. We ran towards her and saw what she had seen. It was a ghost, but not like any ghost I had ever imagined. It was a human-like figure, but it was transparent and distorted. It had no eyes, no mouth, no nose, no ears. It had only a gaping hole in its face, and it was making a horrible noise, like a wail of agony. It was reaching out its arms as if to grab us. We all screamed and ran away, dropping our equipment and cameras. We did not care about the ghosts or the spirit box anymore. We only wanted to get out of the forest and back to our tents. We ran as fast as we could, but the forest seemed to have changed. The trees looked different, the paths looked different, the clearing was nowhere to be seen. We were lost, and we were not alone. We could hear the ghosts following us, and their voices were louder and angrier. They said things like, "You shouldn't have come here. You will never leave here, and you will join us here." We ran and ran until we reached a dead end. There was a cliff and a river below. We had no choice but to jump or face the ghosts. We jumped, hoping to survive the fall. We did not. We hit the rocks and we died. We became ghosts, and we joined the others in the forest. We became part of the haunted forest, and we waited for the next group of foolish campers to come and join us. My wife and I had always dreamed of buying a house in the countryside, away from the noise and stress of the city. We had saved enough money to afford a decent place, and we were looking for something cozy and charming. We found it online, a beautiful Victorian house with a large garden and a stunning view. It was surprisingly cheap, and the seller seemed eager to get rid of it. We thought we had found a bargain, and we decided to buy it without hesitation. We moved in a few weeks later, excited to start our new life. The house was even more beautiful in person, with spacious rooms, elegant furniture, and antique decorations. We felt like we had stepped into a fairy tale, and we couldn't wait to explore every corner of it. We unpacked our belongings and settled in our bedroom. We kissed each other and thanked our lucky stars for finding such a perfect home. That night, we heard the first noises. They were faint at first, like creaks and groans of the old house. We ignored them, thinking they were normal for such an old building, but then they became louder and more frequent, like footsteps and knocks on the walls. We got up and checked the other rooms, but we found nothing. We thought it was the wind or some animals, or maybe our imagination. We went back to bed and tried to sleep. The next day, we noticed some strange things. Some of our belongings were missing or moved to different places. Some of the doors and windows were open or closed or locked or unlocked. Some of the lights were on or off or flickering. We thought it was a prank or a mistake or a glitch. We shrugged it off and carried on with our day. The next night, we heard the voices. They were whispering and mumbling in a language we couldn't understand. They sounded angry and menacing, and they seemed to come from everywhere. We got up and tried to find the source, but we couldn't. We thought it was the radio or the TV or the phone. We turned them off and unplugged them, but the voices continued. We covered our ears and tried to ignore them. The next day, we saw the shadows. They were moving and shifting in the corners of our eyes. They looked like human figures, but they were dark and blurry. They seemed to watch us and follow us and mock us. We turned around and tried to catch them, but we couldn't. We thought it was the light or the dust or the smoke. We opened the curtains and cleaned the windows, but the shadows persisted. We rubbed our eyes and tried to forget them. The next night, we felt the touch. It was cold and clammy like a hand of a corpse. It grabbed us and pulled us and pushed us. It scratched us and bit us and hit us. It hurt us and scared us and tortured us. We screamed and fought back and ran away, but we couldn't. We thought it was a nightmare or a hallucination or a delusion. We pinched ourselves and slapped ourselves, but the touch remained. We cried and prayed and begged for mercy. The next day, we tried to leave. We packed our bags and grabbed our keys and headed for the door. But the door was locked, and the windows were barred, and the phone was dead. We tried to break out and call for help and alert the neighbors, but we couldn't. We realized it was too late, and we were trapped, and we were doomed. I had always been fascinated by the old mansion on the hill. It was rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of its former owners, who had died in a mysterious fire decades ago. I wanted to see for myself if the stories were true, so I decided to spend a night there with my friends. We arrived at the mansion around midnight, armed with flashlights and cameras. The place looked eerie and abandoned, with broken windows and cobwebs everywhere. We entered through the front door, which creaked loudly as we pushed it open. We explored the ground floor, finding nothing but dust and decay. We then decided to split up and check out the upper floors. I went to the second floor, where I found a long hallway with several doors on both sides. I opened one of the doors and entered a bedroom. It was dark and musty, with a large bed covered with a faded quilt. I walked around the room, looking for anything interesting. I noticed a painting on the wall depicting a young couple in Victorian clothes. They looked happy and elegant, but there was something unsettling about their eyes. They seemed to follow me as I moved around the room. I felt a sudden chill in the air, and I heard a soft whisper in my ear. "Welcome to our home," it said. I turned around and saw the couple from the painting standing behind me. They were pale and transparent, and they smiled wickedly at me. They reached out their hands and grabbed me, pulling me towards them. I screamed and tried to break free, but they were stronger and crazier. They stabbed me in the chest, and I felt a surge of pain and blood. They laughed maniacally and whispered in my ear, "You're ours now. You'll never leave this house. You'll join us in death." I closed my eyes and waited for the end. I blacked out and crashed into a tree. The last thing I heard was his laughter echoing in the night. I never made it home, and no one ever found my body. He took my car and my life and moved on to his next victim. He was never caught, and he never stopped killing. He was the nightmare of the night drive, and he was always looking for a ride. The next day, the police found the wrecked car in the woods, but they could not find any trace of me. They assumed I had run away or been kidnapped, and they launched a search operation. They also found the hitchhiker's fingerprints and DNA on the car, and they realized he was a wanted serial killer who had been terrorizing the country for years. They put out an alert and a reward for his capture, but they had no idea where he was or what he looked like. Meanwhile, the hitchhiker had taken my identity and my money, and he had bought a new car and a new outfit. He was driving on the highway looking for his next target. He saw a young woman standing by the roadside, holding a sign that said, "Need a ride to the city." He smiled and pulled over, offering her a lift. She thanked him and got in the car, unaware of the danger she was in. He drove away, humming a tune and glancing at her with his bloodshot eyes and twisted smile. He said to her, "So, where are you headed?" She said, "I'm going to visit my family. They live in the old mansion on the hill." He said, "Really? That's funny. I'm going there too."